and welcome back. In today's video, I am going to clear out this potato patch back here and get it ready because I decided this year I am going to try to plant the potatoes in the fall and see if that does better. I did not get a horrible harvest this year, but I, of course, am trying to improve my yields on what I grow, and I decided I was going to try the method of planting in the fall and let the potatoes overwinter, and hopefully they will grow come springtime, so I won't have to worry about tilling up the ground or anything like that when it's normally wet in the springtime. But before I do that, I forgot I planted sweet potato slips back here, and I was just going to see if I happen to have anything. As you can tell, this is really overgrown through here. I did plant 3 sweet potato slips in all this mess, so I'm gonna have to try to get in here and see what I can find. And if I don't find any sweet potatoes, no big deal. I will just focus on getting all of this cleaned up. I will probably have Todd make a pass with the lawnmower to try to at least knock most of this down so I can get in here and till properly. Crossing fingers, I find some sweet potatoes and we will find out. So I remember planting the sweet potatoes probably in this area, and I think it's safe to say I didn't get anything from there. But the next thing I'm going to have Todd do, I'm going to remove all my wire baskets that I had along the edge in the bags, the grow bags. I had a couple of straw bales at the end here. I'm going to remove those so it's an easier path for him to come through and mow. But while I'm out here, I'm going to clean up my pumpkin patch, which the vine borers decimated them again. So next year I'm going to make sure I am not going to plant any squash or pumpkins in here next year. And I'm probably going to make this primarily cucumbers, beans, and possibly an extra place for tomatoes. I do have a smaller enclosed garden on the other side of this tree line in our backyard. And I also plant the tomatoes and peppers and whatnot, but I'll make my final decision obviously before the growing season next year as to what I plan to plant in here. What I will do today, however, I am going to harvest. I don't know if you see, I have several giant mammoth sunflowers. I'm going to harvest those. I have some, I think these were maybe the lemon queen or something like that, something with lemon in it. I'm going to harvest those seeds as well. I have those throughout here. I do notice that I have some tomatillo plants growing here, and there were some around the side. They're still flowering and producing a little bit. I also noticed several tomato plants in here. They're getting some flowers. Some of my cayenne peppers are still growing. I'll collect some of those. Here's a tomato plant, a rogue one. I did not plant that in here. So it looks like I have some bean plants growing. We'll see if we can get any more harvested off of that this year. There's some more tomato plants. This is a complete mess in here. It is September 16th today. So a lot of my plants, I'm kind of cleaning things up and getting things ready for either fall planting or just for the end of the year. I notice I have an acorn squash with a lot of squash bugs on there. I might be able to harvest that one. I did harvest some spaghetti squash and some acorn squash. So, you know, it is what it is. I have some corn stalks I'm going to use for decorations on my front porch. I'll go ahead and collect those. My cayenne pepper plant is doing pretty well. Look at all those peppers on them. So I'll make sure I harvest these, and I'll just leave these grow until they die off because they're still producing. Okay, so here's one of the sunflowers. You can tell they're ready. All the flower petals that have kind of died back, they come off easily, and you can see the seeds in there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I'll continue to let it dry upside down. Okay, so I have one. Let's see how many others I can harvest. So check out the height of this. This is a mammoth sunflower. I bet this stands at least 14 foot tall. It just towers over me. And this is how I know they're ready to harvest. They're bowing down, so they're downward facing, and I'm just going to cut those off. I can also tell that the seeds, some of them are gone. The birds have already started getting them, so I didn't want to waste them, so I'm going to go ahead and get those harvested. So how I'm going to harvest them, I'm basically, because they're so tall, I'm basically going to pull this down where I can reach it, and then I'm just going to cut it at the stem up here. Okay, so I couldn't see it from up there, but check out all of those squash bugs. Holy cow. I'm going to tap them off to get them off. Okay, so I just tapped them on the ground. I think I got most of them. And then you can see, I'm just going to prune some of these leaves off of it. Okay, so I tipped it over, and you can see, look at all those beautiful seeds. So I'm going to leave them on and let them continue to dry on the head. I just wanted to get to these before the birds started getting to them. And this is my first year with sunflowers, so hopefully I get a good yield. Okay, so check out this one. A lot of these seeds are already gone here. Looks like the birds have already been getting to them. Brush off those flower tips because they'll make such a mess. Don't want to lose that seed. I see a couple of spaghetti squash that have fallen on the ground. I'm going to go ahead and come in here and see if there's anything I could possibly find that I can collect for harvest. At one point, all of my pumpkins were growing out of this and into this area. Todd ended up mowing them over, but if you notice, look at all these seeds from when the pumpkins rotted on the ground. I'm just going to throw them in that field over there and see if they grow next year. They probably won't, but wouldn't that be fun? So I found a couple of butter squash, acorn squash, and then so far this is my sunflower harvest. I'm going to save these seeds and then replant them next year. I'll probably make an area that's just for sunflowers. Maybe that will completely surround the garden out here. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to continue cleaning all this mess up on this side and for sure over here in the potato patch, because like I said, I want to go ahead and get those planted this fall. And I will be cleaning out the chicken coop after this is all mowed down. And I'm probably going to lay what I clean out from the chicken coop in through here and also in my garden, because I'm wanting to get some things planted as well, such as garlic. And also just to get it cleaned up for the winter time so that it's easier for me to take care of it in this spring. Okay, so it's been a minute since I did my last recording. I don't know if you remember how I had straw bales in the front here and there were a bunch of weeds in through here. So what I have done since last time I videoed is I cleaned out the chicken coop, and if you would like to see how I clean out my chicken coop, I will post that video in the comments below, and I will also have that link up above. But this is an experimental year. Like I said, I've only done and grown potatoes for maybe a few years, whether it be in bags or in the ground. This year's experiment, I'm going to go ahead and plant my potatoes in the fall to see if that is an easier process than having to worry about the rains in the spring and finding a good time to till up the ground to plant the potatoes. But I'm not going to plant that many potatoes. I have more potatoes I can plant in the spring. But in the meantime, I am going to experiment and see how it does. So what I'm going to do is just probably in this front portion here, I'm going to plant the potatoes that I pulled out of the ground right before I did all the tilling. So what you see here is me cleaning up this potato bed. I cleaned out the coop and I tilled all of this in. And it's probably been at least a week or two since I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and get that planted. I had a couple of sweet potatoes as well that I had pulled out of the ground whenever I was doing the cleanup. So I'm going to get all of these in the ground and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm the only one videoing this. I'm just going to show you how I am doing this. I am taking the shovel and pushing it all the way down to basically the top of the shovel. And I'm lifting the ground. And then I'm just throwing the potato in. So I'm going to say this is at least 10 to 12 inches deep. And it's pretty loose soil since I had just tilled it within the last week or two. And I am planting them approximately 5 across. And I haven't gotten too far yet because I still have all this way to go. So if this experiment doesn't work, I'll know in the spring. I will see if any of the green tops come up from the potato plant. And if it does not come up, that's fine. I'll just go ahead and till it again in the springtime and do a full planting throughout here with probably a couple of different types and varieties of potatoes and some sweet potatoes. Okay, so I went ahead and I got all of the potatoes planted from here all the way to about this row. This is all potatoes. And those are the potatoes I actually pulled out of the ground whenever I was cleaning up. And then this row plus where the shovel is, I planted 4 of the sweet potatoes. 3 in this row and 1 by the shovel. And I still have all of this way to go. So like I said, this is an experiment that I'm doing this year just to see if this works. And if it does, I will always plant potatoes this way. I did talk to somebody who has gardened for many, many years, and I don't think he ever tried planting in the fall, but he did tell me that he just doesn't think that this is going to work, only because he feels like it's going to rot over the winter time. So, but it's an experiment. It's okay. I do like to experiment with things, especially when it comes to the garden and me trying my hand to see if I could get more of a yield. Let me know in the comments below if you ever planted potatoes in the fall and how it worked out for you. Now, I am in zone 6B. I live in Southern Illinois, and I'm sure because of where I live, that probably makes a difference. So if you're in my zone and you've planted potatoes in the fall, I would be very curious to know if this worked for you and if you have any tricks or tips in regards to this. And I forgot to mention that when I tilled all this area up, not only was it from my chicken coop, which in my chicken coop, if you've watched any of my videos, I've explained how in the coop part, I always put pine shavings down. And of course, it's their manure. I'm obviously using it for fertilizer. And then I had those straw bales that were at the end here. I went ahead and opened those up and spread them out and tilled those in as well. So the ground is a lot looser than what it was last year, or I should say the beginning of this year whenever I planted the potatoes. So if you're curious to see how well this experiment works out, obviously it's going to take several months to get to next year, but be sure you subscribe and follow me so that we can see if this worked or not. And as always, I appreciate you And I thank you for watching, especially if you've been watching thus far. And until next time, thank you for watching.